Why doesn't somebody give Brian Hartline a star or 2 or 5 or 10 in the last 3 days? My goodness, if the star rankings and the ratings and the stars mean anything, the Buckeyes are doing rather well. Buckeyes Live, we hope to do rather well for the next 60 minutes for all of you. Please leave those comments and questions there in the live chat. We will bring them to our experts, which include right next to me, Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop. Kevin Noon also shows up at Buckeye Scoop as well. And Steve Hellwagon in the opposite corner of Bucknuts 247 Sports. Guys, how we doing today?
Good.
Had to hustle a little bit recently. You guys have had enough to write about, but a lot of good news surrounding Ohio State recruiting. The dead period starts on June 27th, and I guess Ryan Day and company had that highlighted on their calendar because they've been working extra hard to get things done with some pretty good football players. All right, Tony, maybe we'll start with you on Brandon Innis. He's the latest to come into the fold 1 day ago, and I have not seen him play, but a few other people have, and they think he's pretty good.
Yeah, most people think he's pretty good. Ranked the number 2 wide receiver in the 24/7 composite. I think number 18 player overall. Of course, 5-star kid. Was previously committed to Oklahoma and then decommitted when Lincoln Riley went to USC. Took a trip to USC this spring. I got to see it and yet still decided after visiting Alabama, I think, and Ohio State to become a Buckeye. And this was a guy that Ohio State has wanted for a long time, has been involved with for a long time, and is a very dynamic receiver, 6 foot, about 190 pounds, kind of compact and can be an outside guy. I think with this Ohio State receiver class that they're putting together, I've been comparing them to former Buckeyes, and the guy I'm using for Brandon Innis has been Santonio Holmes. So we'll see. That's just an unfair projection, but why not? That's what we're here for.
Brandon,
yeah,
and Steve.
I don't do comparisons. Yeah. God bless you, Tony, for doing them, because I always hate that. But it's been quite the little run here over a couple of days. Maybe they're not done. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but they've been able to go and get themselves a pair of receivers with Innis and Tate, and all is well in the receiver room as they build class after class. And it was. With Brandon Innis, I mean, it was a waiting game. I mean, he was going to announce October of 21, and that didn't happen, and then it pushed back a little bit. And it's funny, too, because you sit there and I'm talking Tate there, I'm sorry. But, with Innis, I mean, it was a situation, as Tony had said, with Oklahoma, and everybody just, I think there were some people nationally that thought that once Tate was in, well, there's no way that Tate and Innis are going to team up. Well, guess what? They're teammates on South Florida Express on the 7-on-7 team. They're used to playing in the same offense. You see 2 Ohio State receivers go in the top, 15 of the draft this year. We're going to see this upcoming year, Jackson Smith and Jigba go top 5, maybe. I mean, overall, there's plenty of room to eat on this offense. So, I mean, just can't say enough for what Ohio State's been able to do there.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Got Carnell Tate on Monday, 6'2", 185 pounds from IMG Academy, number 28 overall prospect in the country, number 3 wide receiver. And then a day later, Brandon Innis from American Heritage High School, Fort Lauderdale, number 18 prospect overall, number 2 wide receiver in the country, 6 foot, 190 pounds. And in back-to-back days, they get national top 50 wide receivers. And somebody said that Michigan under Harbaugh has gotten 1 in his entire time he's been the coach there at Michigan. Ohio State got him on back-to-back days. It's the 13th national top 100 player to commit to Ohio State at wide receiver alone in the last 5 years, and the 6th guy in the top 50 overall nationally at wide receiver. So what Brian Hartline is doing here is nothing short of unprecedented in terms of recruiting the wide receiver position. And given the numbers Ohio State put up last year as the number 1 offense in the country, yardage-wise and points-wise, and with the quarterbacks that they have committed, Obviously they've got Kyle McCord and Devin Brown on campus. One of them figures to start next year when CJ Stroud has moved on to the NFL. And we got to see Dylan Raiola at camp yesterday, a 2024 prospect. He's going to carry it on. They're set at quarterback through 2026 right now. They've got offers out to a pair of 2025 candidates, Ryan Montgomery. And then yesterday they offered Colin Hurley, an outstanding quarterback from Florida. Does that sound right?
Yeah, he's out of Jacksonville. He's out of Trinity Christian.
Yeah, Jacksonville Trinity.
Same school where Sean Wade and others have come from.
I can't keep all the high schools straight, but just if you say they're from Georgia or Florida, it's a pretty good guess, because that seems to be where they are just hammering home the offers and the commitments right now. Georgia and Florida, they are just on fire right now. So there is no end in sight for this Ohio State juggernaut. And I was on the local station 97.1 The Fan this morning, and they asked me about guys coming in for visits this weekend or whatever. And I'm like, look, quarterback and wide receiver are covered. What they need are offensive linemen and national top 50 and national top 100 guys on defense. Those are the areas. If it's not somebody in those two areas, don't come to me. Don't talk to me about it. That's what they need above all else right now.
And they do have some of those guys coming in this weekend for their official visits. It's going to be a pretty busy weekend. Carnell Tate, to me, he's got some Michael Thomas to him. He's a strong, big kid. And I mentioned this on the Buckeye Weekly podcast, my podcast. But the first time I got to see him last year on the field, he dominated and was like a bully. But then you look back and it was against Bishop Sycamore. So, he should have dominated those guys, but you go beyond that, and he's a strong kid and can maybe be your X receiver and do some things after the catch as well. The internet era, these almost 25 years now, Ohio State has signed or gotten commitments from 7 5-star guys, 5-star receivers. Hartline has been responsible for 6 of those guys, and that's some pretty good work there in a short amount of time. He's been the receivers coach here since 2018, been recruiting, responsible for the classes 2019 and on, and what he's been doing is unseen. Now, the other thing is he's developing these guys too, because he's taking guys who aren't 5-star guys and still doing quite well with them, and equipping some of them for Alabama and some of them for Ohio State. But just a remarkable job that he's doing, and that's not kind of slowed down anytime soon, I don't think. And they're already in line for an eventual commitment from one of the top 2024 receivers, maybe more than one. And so it's a good time to be an Ohio State fan. It's a great time to be an Ohio State quarterback.
Yeah, definitely more than one, because, I think that you could sit there and say, well, Jeremiah Smith, but, don't sleep on Tyseer Denmark as well. I mean, and there are other names that we're not even talking about at this point in terms of that. So, we're going to sit here in 365 days from now and be looking at it's 2024 going to be the greatest receiver class in Ohio State history, as 2023 is signed, and some of them are on campus, all of them are on campus. It's just kind of how it goes. We're always looking forward.
Ohio State will take the field this year with, I believe, 7 top 100 receivers, and that's not counting G. Scott, who moved to tight end. Michigan will be taking the field this year with 2 top 100 defensive backs, and they're both going to be true freshmen. So just an idea of the talent levels that will be facing each other. Feel free to take that to your Michigan shows there, Mark, and I'm sure they're aware of that, though.
We will clip this and go forward with it. Yes, absolutely. We cut a segment with our guy Steve Dace yesterday, and I cannot beat it through his head. Your team talent rank. I'm looking recruiting classes that rank between 10 and 13 versus between 2 and 5. I'm not getting your roster evaluation. And I told him that. I say, I spread that word all over the place, Steve. I love you, and you're doing a great job on all these other fronts, but you cannot convince me of that. You're your best team in 18 years, and you lost your 4 or 5 best players too. Okay. Anyway, before we get to Yakov's comment, you can recruit quarterbacks by saying you got all these wide receivers, or you can recruit wide receivers by saying, look at this quarterback or two that we just recruited and signed, and so forth and so on. Offensive linemen, though, I wonder how you get them in. I don't know if you get them in by saying, hey, we got these great quarterbacks and wide receivers. I don't know if they really care.
Kevin.
Just certain positions are connected, and you can use that as leverage. I don't know if you can do that at the offensive line position.
You're on mute.
All right, I'm sitting and wanted to get on the mic. But everybody wants to, be on a winning team and be on, the best offense in the history of a program or whatever. So, I think offensive line certainly is going to take a lot out of that. I mean, no, it's not as much of saying, well, the commitments of Tate and Innis make me suddenly more excited about Ohio State in terms of what my routine is going to be. But then again, as I said, everybody wants to be on a winner. Everybody wants to be part of the hot program. So there's something to be said about it. But offensive line is always something we're going to have to circle back to in terms of recruiting and looking at some of those things. And we're going to have a big weekend of visits coming up here in terms of what offensive line may look like. I mean, they certainly have some Plan B guys that that they're keeping warm and whatnot, but you have to be able to land those Plan A guys, because offensive line recruiting has not been consistent through the years. I mean, they still go out and get the Paris Johnsons of the world. They still go out and get the Donovan Jacksons of the world, but then you also go out and get some of these guys that are going to be 2, 3, 4-year projects. And, we've seen a lot of movement through the portal. So, this is going to be a year where I was talking with Mark at the camp, and Mark Givler from Buckeye Scoop. And, I really think this is going to be a class where they're going to have to shoot for a 28-man class and just kind of let the numbers fall where they may, because you're going to have to make some roster decisions coming up. And offensive line is really the one that I think that the most people are going to have their feet to the fire, because, I'm just going to be honest, the end of the Greg Studrawa recruiting era kind of ended on a little bit of a whimper. So you better be able to produce, or you better be ready to get into that portal.
Yeah, there's guys there that are never going to play. And so the era today is you replace them with guys who may be able to, and unless you're going to go to the portal and grab somebody who can play. But yeah, I'm with you, Kevin. You go get as many as you want, especially given that the limits are kind of, I believe they've lifted the 25-man limit for this year and next or something like that, or they're going to. They'll still have like the 85-man limit, but they're going to take the limit off of classes so that teams can catch up. So this is going to be one of those things where you expect players to leave via the portal, so you do everything you can so that when you're kicking off that first game, you're at 85 scholarships, and it's not because you gave 4 to walk-on seniors.
So most of the success of wide receiver recruiting is obviously hardline, but then there's an extension that is obviously the quarterback recruits and signees that they get are going to lure great wide receivers, and then Ryan Day's offense is attractive. I wonder if this, how much pressure this puts on other coaches when they see a guy just tearing it up, and let's be honest. I think they've got talent in other positions on the field, so it's not like it's just wide receiver and that's all they got going for themselves. But still, with lacking in other positions, how much pressure this puts on other coaches to step it up.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. As I said earlier, there are positions where they need difference makers yesterday to try and win a national championship. I was at the camp yesterday. One of the old-time guys who shows up there said you could watch Georgia and just see what the difference was in that team. They had guys on the defensive line who changed the line of scrimmage, and Ohio State just didn't have that. So if you want to take that last step and win the national championship, you got to have those kind of difference maker type players. And Ohio State last couple of years just hasn't had those. So to my way of thinking, there is room to continue to improve this program. And you put it in a way, that if he can get great offensive skill position players there, quarterback, wide receivers, there's no reason why they can't get great players across the board at every position. And that's kind of goes back to what I was saying a moment ago. I don't know what the names are. I don't know what the rankings are, but they need blue chip guys at every other position to follow suit. And that's when you'll have a championship team on your hands, in my opinion.
But Ohio State also can be its own success because you sit there and you look at Bosa and Young, and it's like, why isn't Zach Harrison, Bosa and Young? Well, we're talking about generational type of players. One was a Heisman finalist. The other two probably should have been Heisman finalists. So I think that I agree wholeheartedly with what Steve's saying. I mean, it is Jimmy's and Joe's in a lot of regards, but I think that some of the disconnect, though, too, was just that the scheme was not right. I mean, I think it was once Jeff Hafley left for Boston College, and this isn't, I'm not, I'm still very friendly with Kerry Combs. I'm not speaking ill of Kerry Combs, but I think it was a case of he was given a hand. He was dealt a hand of Ryan Day saying, I want cover 1, cover 3, even though you're not really, that's not what you've come up in. And Kerry Combs and Matt Barnes trying to do their best with it. I think we're going to see some of these guys that maybe people are a little leery of, maybe a little lukewarm on. I think we're going to see them do a lot better with a more, with a scheme that is better suited to what it is that Ohio State's been recruiting to what Ohio State is about defensively. And I was talking to somebody who had a conversation with defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, and kind of the gist of their conversation was Jim Knowles is like, you know what, let everybody kind of keep sleeping on us. We're not that bad. I mean, we've got the guys. It's just a matter of putting it all together. So, it's not a case of them not having the guys, but to Steve's point, moving forward, you have to keep replenishing the cover. You have to keep bringing those guys in. You do want to be able to get some blue guys and things like that, but you've got to be able to go out and get the Caleb Downs of the world. You have to be able to go out and get those types of players. Todd Bowles, the linebacker, just a couple off the top of my head. So, we shall see.
Folks, we appreciate you being here. 135 on the line for Buckeyes Live here on a Wednesday at our normal time, 1:30 Eastern time. But this is a good reason why you need to subscribe. Hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. They have camps and other events to be at. We've got 4 schedules to coordinate. Therefore, we've got to float the show from time to time. Therefore, again, hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. These guys deliver for us each and every week. We hope you appreciate that. Roger Dodger, real quick. Yes, that was a video I posted. That was not my opinion, so please separate my opinion from my guest's opinion. There we go. All right, Billy Tuesday. Kevin mentioned Downs. Are the Buckeyes in serious contention for? Is there another Uiagalelei out there in Downs? What other prospects on defense are they going for?
There is another Uiagalelei. Mateo, defensive end from 2023, 5-star defensive end. And Caleb Downs, 5-star free safety type, safety for sure guy. I think Ohio State's very involved. I think they'd be considered the leader for Uiagalelei right now. Downs just came off of what is Alabama visit, Kevin, and is headed for Ohio State, I think. And so you would expect maybe Ohio State to be trailing following a visit to Alabama, but not enough that Ohio State can't make up the ground. So as we've said before, these guys who are taking their spring visits are generally looking to make decisions before the season. So could be some good news coming for Ohio State defensively finally. And before I hand this over to Kevin, I was just going to the last point. Under Ryan Day, Ohio State has signed 20 top 50 guys or got commitments from top 50 guys, including this year's class. Of those 20, 6 are on defense, and 4 of them are Ohioans. So there has been the numbers are skewed in terms of offense and defense. So, but hopefully here in this class, and they made up for it in the last class, and that's certainly trying to do it again with this class. And up front is one way to get it done.
I'll speak on Downs because that's easier for me to pronounce than Uiagalelei. Caleb Downs did come off of his Alabama visit. Going into that visit, I felt that it really was Ohio State and Alabama. Georgia got a visit. I don't think that there was as strong a connection there as there was with Ohio State and Alabama. He certainly has the world to say about Alabama now coming off of that visit. I think that there are some people who are really running with that. I'm being a little more cautious there. And, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm saying I'm right and they're wrong. I mean, it could be the other way around. But I think that, at the moment, just based on recency bias and just what he's seen, that Alabama probably at this moment in time, as we're watching this and recording this, is the leader. But, come and talk to me in a couple days after his official visit. But I really think it's kind of a 1-1A situation. And I ultimately still have Ohio State landing Downs. And, then for Mateo, I know that they're going to be SC fans that are going to disagree with me, but I think Ohio State's in a very good position there. And that's not just a matter of reading Big Dave on Twitter and what he's saying over there. I really do think just around people I've talked to around the program, they feel that they've got a very good shot, but nothing's being taken for granted even once you get the commitment, that doesn't mean anything until pen goes to paper and the fax machine, spits out toner and you have the letter of intent in front of you. But, and I think Ohio State very much could land both of these guys.
Just picking up the ball here this weekend, they've got several top defensive prospects scheduled to visit this coming weekend. 3 national top 100 guys in addition to Caleb Downs. Also Troy Bowles, the son of the Tampa Bay head coach, the new head coach there. He's ranked number 44 in the country at linebacker, 6'1", 205. And then Jason Moore, defensive lineman from DeMatha Catholic in Maryland, Hyattsville, Maryland. He's ranked 52. And Tackett Curtis, a linebacker out of Louisiana, he's ranked number 81. So John Walker's another one. He's just inside the top 100 of defensive linemen, 310 pounds. He's maybe one of these guys that we're talking about that could have an impact at defensive tackle, and that's where this defense really needs a lot of help. So those 4 guys all due in for official visits this coming weekend. That would be huge if the Buckeyes could land 1, 2, 3 of those guys. And again, still 6 months or thereabouts until signing day in mid-December. So we are looking forward to it. And, again, Ohio State football recruiting has become one of the great spectator sports around, watching these guys land one great player after another. So it's been a lot of fun here the last few days, and we'll see if they can stay hot.
Yakov 22's here. Appreciate you being here, man, as always. And to Steve's point earlier, can we trade a wide receiver to Georgia for a 5-star defensive tackle?
They could have traded 3-star Chris Olave for 3-star Jordan Davis. It's not just the 5-star defensive tackles that turn out to be pretty good at Georgia. It's they know what they're doing there, and certainly it's tough to bring those southern defensive tackles up north. So you got to get them from other places, basically.
The big guys tend to stay warmer. You would think that they would have more success luring the big guys up north rather than the little skinny guys. But there you go. Devante Wyatt, the guy that played next to Jordan Davis that didn't have as much acclaim, he actually impressed me more down the stretch. And he wasn't that highly ranked or touted coming out of high school either. So a lot of buzz in the chat about, as Kai Fresh says right here, one more commit today. So what is the speculation, the possibilities out there?
When I got off the phone with Ryan Day and we were talking about it, I said I wouldn't mention it here on this show. Big fan of the Mark Rogers channel, but no, it's I certainly there was a rumor that it might be Jermaine Matthews because he announced that he had a 12 o'clock Eastern announcement, and that was to announce a new commitment date and a top 6. Honestly, I believe that's a top one, which is Ohio State. So, stay tuned for that one. So it's not Jermaine Matthews. There's a belief that it could maybe be Noah Rogers, who could be the fourth receiver in the class. But his official visit did not go down as planned this past weekend due to travel concerns. Do you have to get him on campus to have that official visit to be able to get there? Is he on campus right now on an official visit? And we just don't know. I mean, there's nothing that says that you have to do your official visit Friday to Sunday. So I don't know the timing there. It would be kind of important if he really wants to get in with Rico Flores, who's supposed to be coming in from the West Coast. He seems to be Notre Dame bound, but is that a result of it sounding like it was going to be a 4-man class for Ohio State and Rico Flores was not going to be part of it? So I don't know. I could list off 4 or 5 other names, but I want to be able to give Tony and Steve something to talk about. So I'll tap out.
Yeah, the Noah Rogers thing was a little bit interesting this past weekend. As one person told me, he just didn't show up. And then maybe subsequently we found out that there was a problem perhaps with his flight or something of that nature. I don't know. And somebody said that he did go on and visit NC State instead this past weekend. NC State is the home field advantage with him being from North Carolina. And maybe there is a major pull for him to stay at home and play for the Wolfpack. He's from Rolesville, North Carolina, which I have no idea if that's near
Raleigh.
Oh, it's near Raleigh. Okay. Well, yeah, that would be right near NC State then, obviously. So tremendous pull for him to maybe try and stay at home and play for the Wolfpack where his family can watch him play. But, I think obviously Ohio State's building just a tremendous synergy here with this quarterback wide receiver onslaught that there's no end in sight right now for Ohio State to continue stacking one great player on top of another. And, maybe he's the next guy in that loop. He's ranked, I think, just outside the top 50. Noah Rod, well, he's number 50 exactly in the composite. So he counts as another top 50 guy. That would be 7 of them in 5 years if they get him just at the wide receiver position alone. So that's pretty crazy. But when you have 3 guys put up the numbers like Wilson, Olave, and Smith-Njigba did this past year, you're going to attract a lot of bees with that honey. There's no doubt about that.
It is interesting because it does seem like they're down to 2 2023 receivers. Not that they can't go get more, but in terms of the final targets with Rico Flores and Noah Rogers. And as Kevin said, Rico Flores is scheduled to be at Ohio State this weekend on an official visit. Is this going to be Noah Rogers heading him off at the pass where it's like, hey, first, whoever wants this last spot, jump in, and then that's it. We're closing it down because I don't see them taking more than 4 receivers. And so it's kind of the first one in is the guy. And so we've seen it happen before where somebody steps in before before somebody else can do it. And that maybe is what will happen here. But something seems to be going to happen the way the players are tweeting and taking to social media about 3 days in a row, this or that. So we're all just waiting patiently for it to happen. Basically, as we have been doing all week long.
Buyers Vacation Rentals, thank you so much for the super chat and his prediction on Noah Rogers today. Steve mentions NC State. They have to have the most positive offseason vibe of a have-not than anybody in the country, coming off 9-3, a couple strong recruiting classes by their standards. One of the best quarterbacks in the country coming back, Devin Leary, and almost their entire defense. So we'll see if NC State can maybe shake things up in the ACC.
Louisville, another one.
Yes. Well, yeah, they are strictly from a recruiting standpoint. Absolutely. Wingman Ted, what are your thoughts on needing to retain Kevin Wilson? We had a pretty lengthy conversation about Kevin Wilson a week or 2 ago, right here with these 3. If it means making Hartline an offensive coordinator to keep him, how much is he, meaning Kevin Wilson, really utilized in the Ryan Day offense?
Well, the good news is that I understand everybody's fear of losing Brian Hartline. Everybody's concerned about it. Everybody's concerned about how much money he makes and everything else. Got himself a raise. I believe he got himself a new title. We know that the titles are all well and good. I don't care who we're talking about. This is Ryan Day's offense. This is not Kevin Wilson's offense. This isn't Brian Hartline's offense. This isn't Tony Alford's offense. This isn't Justin Fry's offense. It's Ryan Day's offense. So worrying about the title, I think the only concern on titles is if you sit there and you feel that you're locked into what you can pay a guy based on what his title is. We're very close to them taking the caps off of how many coaches you can have in terms of college football, from whatever it is, 11 coaches to an unlimited amount of coaches. And then things are going to get even more cloudy on the org chart for fans to follow. I mean, because everybody wants to see, okay, it's Day here. Let me make sure I'm on camera. It's Day here, and then it's these guys here, and then these guys here. You're going to get to this point of where you're just going to have all these circles all over the page, and everybody's going to be just pointing up toward the head coach. That's just how it's going to be. Now, as for Kevin Wilson, Kevin Wilson is kind of the longtime coach. He was a head coach. He's done this for a while. He's good at a lot of organizational things. I know they really relied on him a lot in terms of the camp setting for making sure that, that the trains ran and things along those lines. So I wouldn't be so quick to be pushing Kevin Wilson aside. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Wilson, if another opportunity for a head coaching position that was something that he was interested in. I mean, I'm sure he could find a head coaching position tomorrow, if he just put his name out and said, I'm open to all inquiries at this point. But, I think it needs to be the right position. He doesn't have to deal with a lot of the stuff that he had to deal with at IU at Ohio State. So because of that, he's really in a good situation. In terms of what the offense is, he certainly has his input. He's certainly on the offensive channel. He certainly does a lot in terms of helping the team with development. He's kind of positionless because I understand he works with the tight ends, but so does Justin Fry, because the tight ends do a lot of blocking. So does Brian Hartline, because the receivers at least are window dressing as guys who are eligible to catch passes. But I'm not ready to be pushing Kevin Wilson off to any sort of side role at this point.
No, he's not going anywhere. He and Ryan Day build this offense kind of hand in hand, and Wilson doesn't have an ego and accepts his role, and I'm sure he would tell you he would do anything to keep Hartline right where he is, and if that's co-coordinator or whatever it would be, I don't think it'd be an issue.
Brian Hartline was asked last November, basically, do you ever see yourself leaving? You're going to have to start climbing up the ladder because you're just a lowly wide receivers coach. And he was asked that, and I can just read you some of the answers, basically, saying that he views his job right now as the pinnacle of the ladder. And he said, I'm not a person to sit here and tell you, no, I'm never leaving Ohio State. I'm not saying I ever will. You say go up the ladder, go where? This is the pinnacle of the ladder. And the ego at this point is pretty minimal, I think, at times. Maybe other people don't think so. But I don't need the satisfaction of calling plays or whatever. I don't know what the ladder is, but to me, I'm at the pinnacle of the ladder. And he is, I saw him speaking, must have been spring of 2019, when he was talking to coaches and said that, this has been his calling. And it's not necessarily a job. He doesn't need it. Certainly doesn't need to work ever again. He signed contracts worth $30+ million in the NFL, has other businesses involvements that he's had as well. And so it's a situation where he's not your typical coach. Now, will he be at Ohio State forever? Probably not. Nobody ever is. And it's just, it's funny to me when you have, because I've seen it on our own board where Ohio State fans, they're very excited, but then it's like, oh no, how much longer can we keep him? It's like, I've won the lottery, but oh no, I'm eventually going to spend this money and it's going to be gone. Enjoy it while it's here. That's what it's for. people were like, oh no, well, what's going to happen when Urban Meyer leaves? Oh no, what's going to happen when Jim Tressel leaves? Oh no, what's going to happen when, it's Ohio State. It just keeps going on. And, it's funny. What would happen if Brian Hartline leaves? Keenan Bailey would take over, and he's one of the best young coaches that nobody ever talks about. That is well known in the coaching circles. And Ohio State has been working very, very hard to keep in Columbus. So, just as Ohio State has players that are at a surplus of talent in regards to the players, there are certain coaching positions where they have a surplus of talent as well. So, they don't need to. Don't worry about losing Brian Hartline. What's worse is having coaches that never leave because nobody else wants them. You look at Jim Tressel's offenses and Jim Bowman. Nobody was ever coming around for Jim Bowman or John Peterson, and there's a reason. Like, you want other schools to come around looking for your coaches. That tells you things are going well and that you have good coaches. And when at Ohio State, there's no shortage of people wanting to work there either. So if you do eventually lose Brian Hartline in 5 years, then there will be such a stockpile of talent that you may not even miss him for a while.
I was watching the 2010 Sugar Bowl that the NC2A told me to strip from my memory against Arkansas, and that was Terrell Pryor was on that team. You had Dane Sanzenbacher. I was going through, and they had like 4 first half drives that were all in the 65 to longer range, and it just felt like I was watching a sport on a very different speed in terms to how that offense was run and how it was constructed. And I remember at the time, again, I'm not supposed to remember the game. The NC2A told me that it didn't exist. I remember being like, man, this might be as good as it gets. This is wide open football. This is prolific, skilled, accurate passing. And, and I'm watching it like it's, a car going on Interstate 70 with the parking brake on. It's just crazy with what we're seeing. And the point being, Tony's right in terms of you don't want to have a coaching staff that all stays together for 15 years, because that just means generally nobody is really that excited about poaching those guys. Look at the Nick Saban staff. That thing turns over on the reg, and that's because people are going to sit there and poach his coaches and be able to, make head coaches out of them, and some of them work out and some of them don't, and the ones who don't end up back at Alabama again. So, enjoy the moment. Don't sit there and worry about the situation. It's like the constant worry I get about Julian Fleming. Oh my God, Ohio State's going to lose Julian Fleming. Well, Julian Fleming is very happy at Ohio State right now. Would he like to have a larger role in the offense? Absolutely. Has he been injured a huge part of his career? Absolutely. But you know what? If Julian Fleming decides that I'm going to go to Temple and do this, you sit there, you tip your cap to him, you thank him for his time, and you wish him the best because he did a great job. And that's not saying Julian Fleming is going anywhere. I don't need to read Kevin Noon just that Julian Fleming is going to Temple. I'm just using that as an example. But enjoy the moment. Life in general kind of stinks right now. So this is supposed to be for fun. Enjoy it.
Good stuff. 2:35 on the line. We appreciate you being here, but as many people are mentioning in the live chat, let's get the likes up. So if you're here, please hit the like button. When we got 47 likes we've had about 400 plus on the line. We would like to have more likes, especially once we get Kevin's complete fan contingent in here, including Jackie. There we go.
Bronco.
And King Bronco and I are tight. We may not agree on everything, but we're boys.
Okay. Well, row the boat. I'm going to jump on with row the boat. I'm going to play devil's advocate against Ohio State's prolific offense. I'm going to give them a pass for Minnesota and Oregon to a certain extent. C.J. Stroud had never thrown a ball in at the collegiate level. The Penn State game was less than scintillating. Of course, they scored a defensive touchdown. They kept bogging down in the red zone, but they were playing what I think was the most underachieving team in the nation. They played one of the 5 most talented defenses, and when they were on their game, one of the best defenses in the country in Penn State. So I get that. Nebraska was a 23-point effort. Of course, we know 27 against Michigan. They really kicked it into gear in looking at good teams, decent teams, Purdue and Michigan State. That's when they really put on the throttle and look like, okay, they're just going to take this all the way through to the end of the year. And then, of course, the Rose Bowl performance. But for as much talent and prolific status as this offense has, it's not automatic all the time.
What offense is? Like, I mean,
true.
LSU in 2019,
they would be about as close as we can get. Yeah.
You're playing another team, you're playing another defense. So it's like, you're not playing on junior varsity level every single week. So yeah, sometimes things are slow to start or don't get entirely started. And to start the season, like that's not even who your team is at that point. So, I mean, you are who you are, October on. You're not who you are in September. I mean, not even close. Look at Ohio State's defense last year, changed completely, and so did the personnel. So, it was a very good offense, the highest scoring offense in the nation, the most yards in the nation. So whether it was the best or one of the best, I mean, it did all of that while also sometimes not being the best. Nobody is the best all the time.
I mean, look at Alabama last year. And they didn't win the national championship. They just came up just short, but they scored 31 and winning a 2-point game at Florida. That was in September. But a pair of games in November, they beat a hapless LSU team 20-14. And then they only beat Auburn 24-22. I mean, we're talking about 2 games in November, the back third of the season. So you can't, it isn't always on. And what you sit there and you look at your schedule and you know that you're not going to have your A game all 12 games of the regular season. That's just a reality. It's how you perform when you come out and you're 80%. And, and last year we still had some weird issues in terms of, as Tony said, I mean, or I guess Mark said it. I mean, CJ Stroud didn't have, had no career depth to fall back on in that Oregon game. I still really can't explain the Michigan game and the cold and the snow. I have a hard time really calling it a lot of snow, but the snow in that situation. I mean, Nebraska was a weird situation. You just can't get it every single week. But the problem Ohio State had was that the defense was inconsistent on some weeks too. If Ohio State's defense was 5 points a game better, we might be talking about a lot different things at that point. So I don't get too caught up in that. I mean, it's an interesting question or an interesting comment, but you're just not going to be able to bring it week to week.
I watched those Alabama games against Auburn and LSU, and the Auburn game, even the scores puffed up because they went to overtime at 10-10. They had a 10-3 game with like 50 seconds left. They had a field goal on the board. If Auburn doesn't run the ball out of bounds, Tank Bigsby runs the ball out of bounds with whatever it was, a minute, and Alabama's not playing in the national championship game. They are now winning that game against a 6-7 Auburn team, and they would have held Alabama to 3 points. So, yeah, but Bama put it on in the last 50 seconds and made a remarkable touchdown to send it to overtime and got the job done after that. And had one of their worst offensive line / running game performances, I will say the worst in the Nick Saban era. That's the worst their offensive lines played and the least productive running game that's usually just a juggernaut on the ground. And they didn't have it last year, and we'll see if they can improve it this year. All right. What do we want to go to next? I don't see anything here in the comments section or elsewhere. Somebody did ask earlier in the chat, and I know I've come at this a few times because I look at these 2 5-stars on defense and really want and just feel like if one of them can just flash, pop this season, CJ Hicks or Sonny Styles, of course, who's not going to have the just getting on campus now. That's going to be huge for this defense. And then, of course, there's the JTT / Jack Sawyer impact that could be more expected this year than was probably a little unrealistic to expect that those guys would be up to speed and ready to really be all conference kind of players their first year, Tony. So a lot of guys could just all of a sudden emerge.
Yeah, I think you're going to see that it's going to be the 2021 class that explodes this year, and 2022 will have to wait. But, you're talking about JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Tyleek Williams, Mike Hall, just on that defensive line, all 2021 guys, all second-year guys. They'll be relying on those four. Then you go into the secondary. We know Denzel Burke. He started all year long last year, but you don't necessarily know Jordan Hancock, another second-year corner. Ja'Kalen Johnson, another second-year corner that, Hancock was really good this spring and could be in the mix if they want to rotate corners this year. Maybe he gets in there with Cam Brown and Denzel Burke. But in terms of like the freshmen, I don't know which freshman I'm expecting to stand out. Like Kai Stokes may be in the too deep. I'm really standoffish and not pessimistic, but Sonny Styles, I think it's just going to take a little bit of time for him because he's enrolling a year early. He's playing a position that also has some depth. There may be four guys ahead of him, depending on who's playing where at safety. So I think, and the same can be said for CJ Hicks as well. As you guys know, like it's Steel Chambers, maybe it's Cody Simon, maybe it's Taraji Mitchell. Like there's a lot of guys in that inside linebacker that will spot that is going to make it difficult for CJ Hicks. But I do expect a huge surge of the second-year guys, not unlike the 2014 team, which won a national title based on all of their second-year guys.
Get David Whalen on the line. Howdy, Mark, Steve, Tony, Kevin. So, are there any comparative metrics that reveal overall team speed, overall toughness? Don't know how that would be measured regarding Big Ten teams.
Wow. Short of playing the new NC2A video game that's supposed to come out in 2023 as Matt Brown of, Extra Points or whatever his venture is, was able to get through the FOIA request. How we could talk about the video games. There isn't necessarily a speed or a toughness quotient out there. Everybody's going to sit there and have puffed up 40 times in terms of what they do there. We see the pictures taken out of the weight room from the WAC, and it's just like, there are not that many people who are in the sport who are running 4.25. So, take that with a grain of salt or whatever. And, it's not like you can just look at weight room numbers for some of that. So I don't know if there's really anything that's comparative metrics on there. I think what you just need to do is look at how teams play in the fourth quarter in terms of toughness. If you can get it out, if you can play full four quarters, and that's kind of unfair because some teams have their starters in bubble wrap by the fourth quarter, so you can't necessarily, use that. But I don't know. I don't know if Steve or Tony have any better ideas there.
Yeah, the metrics are determined when the teams get on the field. That's the best metric, the final score of the games. You don't know that because you don't know. It's all intestinal fortitude. I think it's all because everybody trains 27 hours in a 24-hour day. They're all working overtime to the point of exhaustion with these players, 5-6 days a week, 58 weeks a year. They put these guys through hell to get ready to play these seasons. So, I can't sit here and say, one of them's prepared better or more than anybody else because it's just impossible to gauge that. But you know it. Obviously, we'll know it beginning with the Notre Dame game, and then after that, you'll have an idea week after week what the team's capable of and what it isn't. And that's just the way it is. You just prepare the best that you can with the players that you have, and you go play. And that's why we continue to harp on the importance in this day and time in our sport of having the biggest, the fastest, the best players, because those are the ones that give you obviously the best chance to win games. And when you don't have them, as Ohio State did not in some instances in some positions last year, you don't win those big games. And that's just the fact of the matter. So I guess if they make improvement at the positions where they were deficient last year and continue to raise up where they're at, then they'll be right where they need to be.
One of the metrics, the stats that I like to look at that I find at cfbstats.com is plays of 10 plus yards, 20 plus yards, 30 plus yards, and so on. Last year, Ohio State led the nation in plays of 50 yards or more from scrimmage with 18. So that gives you some sense of speed, I think. Michigan was second with 17, so that kind of takes away from my argument a little bit, I think. And then you also go to like 40-yard plays. Ohio State was second in the nation with 25. Oklahoma second in the nation with 25. Kent State led the nation with 28. So it's more relative speed, I think, than necessarily overall speed. Kent State was faster than Eastern Michigan. They're not faster than Georgia, So I think it gives you it's information, at least that stat in terms of speed. But there are not a lot of now. What they are doing now is you do have some. You're starting to see these companies measure like miles per hour. Like there's a new stats company out there that will just monitor the movement of every single player at the same time, and they'll tell you how fast they've run. I think soccer has been doing it for years, but it gives you an idea of who the fastest teams are. Now, you'd have to find that in certain instances, like running a 9 route. That's going to give you an idea of how fast guys are, more so than dropping back into coverage or something like that. But you were going to see more and more metrics and analytics for all of this stuff because, one, coaches and schools can afford it, a lot of them, and people consume it. Like there are people who are the niche audience that we all know about. Like they're up for stuff like this. I mean, you've seen it with PFF. Like, why do people care? Why does the average Joe care how the left guard rated last season? But people do, and so you're just going to keep spinning this and spiraling it and seeing what else people will consume, because it gives you two different revenue streams. You've got the public and then you've got the private that teams will pay for and also people will pay for it. So yeah, there will be continued metrics evolving. Overall toughness, I would just go who gets how many targeting penalties do you have? That should measure. That's how you measure toughness.
Cameron, appreciate you being here today. Any news on Amari Washington, who's the a top 15 defensive lineman out of Chandler, Arizona, second-rated player in the state, Dylan's new teammate at Chandler?
No, and he was a guy I was going to ask about actually today, and I didn't do it. So that's my fault. I know early on there were some good things being said, but I have not checked in. Arizona it's so far away from Ohio. But no, I don't have anything. You guys may.
No, I mean, I'm aware of them, but I haven't talked to anybody about them. If you weren't at a camp or you're not making an official visit as part of class of 23 right now, you're gonna have to wait till July 1 to get back on my radar.
We got Ty here asking if you could choose only one position on the defensive side where you would insert a Heartline-like recruiter, what position?
Yes. All of them. I don't know.
No, definitely defensive line for me, because it makes your corners better, it makes your safeties better, it makes your linebackers better. If you can have a heart defensive line, yes, certainly that would be the guy, because he can pick up the slack for everybody else. Not that you'd still want good corners and good linebackers, but he's going to make them all better. And A good corner can only make a defensive line so much better. That they can only stay with receivers for so long.
Yeah, but if your QB fall down all the time because they don't know how to run, you just sit there and you chuck and duck. So I agree. I think defensive line is the more impactful. I mean, it's you win games with your offensive and defensive lines, but there's part of me that's thinking about if you sit there and you're going to say, okay, the whole D line, which is 4 positions, are you going to give me the whole secondary? If you sit there and you bring in an 8-man class on the secondary and they're all top 40 national type players, I mean, that would be pretty impressive as well. But I think D-line is right.
And Noah Rogers has just committed.
All right, let's go.
Wow. My goodness.
Okay.
That's to
That's
go.
just crazy.
You guys talk while I post on the internet.
I know. I got a little work to do too.
Okay, well, these guys have to get to work, but before you do, is there anything on Noah Rogers that was not stated earlier when there was speculation that he would commit?
I guess we just don't know if he ever did make this visit to Columbus or not. I guess, I guess we'll find out here in the hours and days ahead. Maybe he made it to campus today and has decided that was that. Or maybe he saw the handwriting on the wall and saw, if I don't commit now, I lose my spot in this class because they're going to go down and get the next guy. I mean, they're just they're not messing around at this point. And I'm interested to find out more about this as the day progresses, as to exactly what happened here, because it was a bit of a fire drill over the weekend. Like nobody seemed to know or understand why he wasn't on campus. And, then you heard some underpinnings that maybe there was travel or something or the other. But, man, they just the rich just keep getting richer. This is crazy. This is nuts. This is 14 top 100 wide receivers and 7 in the top 50 in the last 5 years. 14 and 7. Who does this? Yeah.
Noah Rogers, 15 games played this past high school season, 70 catches, 1,432 yards. That's almost 21 yards per clip, 22 touchdowns. He scored 33 in his career on 102 catches. All right, number 1 player in North Carolina.
Yeah, we had a chance to go out to his high school as part of our Southern Swing and talk to him and talk to his coach. And he really seems to be one of those kids that, he's going to be a great locker room kid. He's a little on the quiet side, but then again, talking to 2 strange dudes from Ohio who have just come in to see him, he probably wasn't quite sure what to make of us, but you pop in his huddle tape and just see what they're getting there. And it's funny because I think a lot of programs out there nationally with either of the Rogers guys, unrelated, Noah or Bryson, that would be the number 1 receiver in their class. And I think that everybody's going to look at the Ohio State class and be, well, this is about Innis and Tate. Well, don't sleep on either of these guys because, this is a true 4-man class of just hired killers. These guys are just that good. I was told today that it could be Noah Rogers, and I never really had time to let my mind kind of process that. So maybe in the after show, like in the the show where they talk about The Walking Dead afterwards, down that show, I've had a moment to kind of think about this. But this is atypical what's going on right now.
Let's honor some super chats here. Treasure the Tour. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for that. What's up, fellas? Looks like things are really good. Looking good. Shout out to my brother, Kevin, Tony, and Tom. Also, NH, appreciate your comment. Saying here, thank you for the contribution. Hello, Mark and fellas. Love your content. Mark, I watched you on Steve Dace's podcast. I liked how you kept your composure on this podcast. I think TTUN fans are delusional. Then we've got Ty Kroner. Thank you so much for the contribution. Ty, appreciate the input. Always enjoy these videos. I think we've caught up. Thank you so much, everyone.
I wonder what the market would be. I wonder what the market would be for an Ohio State Michigan video show where people don't keep their composure? Like, would that be better than the ones where they do keep their composure?
I was met on the Michigan podcast yesterday with the 5 reasons why Michigan is going to beat Ohio State again. And I usually am measured and so forth. And I came a little bit more with my scarlet and gray to shoot down at least the first 4 points. I got to say I backed off on the 5th one because it did involve toughness. And I said, well, I got to wait and see if Ohio State's going to get back to playing Ohio State type football. This team ran it 13% less than the average team in FBS last year, and also ran it 110th rushing attempts in the nation, and they were blowing most people out. So you would think that they would run the ball more. I just think they need to be a little bit more dedicated to Travion Mayan and the rest of those guys.
Well, I believe they are also first or second in the nation in yards per carry. Third, actually, just slightly behind Utah and Coastal Carolina. And so they could run it. It's just there were times where it did not go so well, short yardage situations and late season situations, as we saw.
Yes, most famously, first possession, second half in the big house. All right, Kevin, Buckeye Scoop, where else can we find you?
Yeah, I'll get around to finally doing a big me kickoff here at some point. I've been a little lazy on that. It's the summer, but I don't have a shortage of things to talk about. We'll talk about receivers. We'll talk about Marcus Freeman and some of his comments. All of that coming up some point this week. I'll be sure to post it on my Big Meat Kickoff Twitter account and make sure everybody knows about it on all of your favorite podcasting locations.
Tony and Steve, before we get to you, we got Treasure the Torah chiming in once again. Appreciate that. Treasure the Torah, thank you so much for the contribution. Mark, this is for you. I forgot to mention your name, love and respect, my brother. Treasure the Did you mention Kevin's name? You may want to. I don't know if you mentioned Kevin's name.
You did absolutely mention me. Treasure's my guy.
Okay, maybe you didn't mention Tony's. Did you mention Tony's name?
Tony, he just called Steve Tom because he watches some of our stuff. And no, Steve and Tom, while friends, are different cats. They're different cats.
They're pretty much the same to me.
I like Tom. Tom's cool. But I think what it is you guys do so many shows together that it's just kind of in a lot of people's mind. It's Kevin, Tony, and Tom, and I'm for this one show I'm here instead of him. But whatever.
Regardless,
Don't call me late for dinner.
Yeah, you can see me right there at Tony Girdman on Twitter. The podcast is the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Going to be dropping a listener questions episode later today. I've already done 2 emergency commitment podcasts this week. Kind of hard to do a third one about receivers again. So, we'll figure something out though.
Steve, all over the place, as always.
Yeah, bucknuts.com, Steve Hellwagon, and we covered the camps, had photos of a lot of the top campers up there, and glad that that's over. 6 days in the books, and I think I was at all 6 of them, and at least 3 of them, it was in the mid-90s. I know that. So, man, it was just kind of brutal out there, but I guess it beats digging ditches for a living. So, I don't know. That's the gist of it. Hoping to get keep some interesting things going and talking about here the rest of this summer, and obviously gearing up for the start of what should be another remarkable season coming up in the fall.
You can join our Discord by going to patreon.com, search MarkRogersTV. We've got a live chat that's humming 24/7, 365. So the chat that you do right here for an hour, you can do anytime you'd like. And a number of people in the chat are part of our contingent of 55 to 60. Let's make that like 500 by football season. All right, guys, appreciate you being here. Great show. Go right about Noah Rogers, and we will see you soon.
Sounds good.